The complete apocalypse prophecies of Parravicini fulfilled. Part 2. The end without end. Now we are going to continue reviewing all the apocalypse prophecies of Parravicini that have been fulfilled. This is part 2, which shows the fulfilled prophecies of the end without end, in the middle stage of the apocalypse, where everything repeats endlessly. The prophecies divide the final apocalypse into 3 seasons. We already saw the beginning of the end, which he calls Hour 10, then comes the end without end, which he calls Hour 11, and finally the end of the end, which he calls Hour 12. These hours are set precisely to organize when certain events occur. For example, in Hour 10, among other things, he places many of the classic apocalyptic memes such as wars, catastrophes, etc., which we already saw fulfilled in part 1. So now we are going to see the fulfillment of Hour 11, which has just begun. 1. The road to the apocalypse fulfilled. We are going to start with the prophecies of the past world wars already fulfilled, because later we will see how they repeat themselves, leading the world to the final Third World War. We will see this in a quick summary by groups and not in detail like the ones that follow, because they are very old, but anyone who wants can see them in detail in the archives. The death of the Pope and chaos in the Church, Roman catacombs as shelters, the War Pact encompassing nations, France, Africa, Italy, Britain, London, Russia, Greece, Turkey, the Soviet Union, Japan, Berlin, and the end of army heads. Horrors revealed during the final months, the final bombings, the miseries and horrors of war, atomic energy, atomic age, the end of the war, Rome, fall of gold and decline of England, forced sterilization, Argentina as post-war attraction for all powers migrating, dictatorships and overthrows in Argentina when Egyptian and Nazi esotericism trips of the Argentine First Lady to Europe, the secret betrayal of the Argentinian First Lady who got surgery without her knowing shortly before dying, the change of First Lady with Egyptian esotericism, Argentinian dictatorships of 45 and overthrows of 66, repeated Spanish dictatorships, the temporary fall of Spain after the war, Spain united with Argentina, the Virgin in Spain, the false post-war peace, the announcement of satellites and aeronautical tests with dogs, death of another pope, the Pope to America, the formation of modern Israel and the war with Syria, Cuban socialism and Castro. Its crisis with North America would be about to unleash a war and would repeat much later, that is, now. It is extremely important to clarify that many of these prophecies were years or decades in advance, and things that were even secret for most people and those involved at the time, which definitely proves that the spiritual plane is real and that there is an all-seeing eye in there. 2. Apocalyptic repetition fulfilled. Now we are going to see the cyclical repetition of many of the same events that end in the new final war. In the prophecies it shows that everything will repeat, like the world wars, and in the picture you can see 2 smaller growing circles, but the last one is more separated and much larger. That last one would be the present one. In this prophecy of cyclical repetition, it clarifies that antichristical beast ideas are inherited. The inheritance of technocracy, wireless technology, euthanasia, the dominating woman leading to the fall. The business of protest. The Great Depression repeated 3 times. The doomsday clock again. They never want to reach hour 12 because prophetic hour 12 is the return of the good kingdom and the end of the evil kingdom. False prophets copying it over and over again. False messiahs repeating esoteric and astrological memes and appropriating ancient symbols of the true crusades. Year by year, exposure of the occultism of ruling elites. The reign of the Mask of London. Prophecies of the division of the Church and 2 popes. The toxic fog. The Chinese Communist dictatorship. Nationalist massacres of the First and Second World Wars returning for the end. In fact, in the prophecy of Zionism, it uses the same image of triple repetition to make it clear: the first 2 closer and smaller, the third later and larger, without a 4th repetition. There is no more. Indo-Pakistanis wars promoted by the Serpent Nation, the mistakes of North America leading to its fall, USA dominated by Israel, the Cuban darkness that leads to chaos, silent weapons, nuclear madness, black armed groups to ignite activism, revelation of sexual and child human trafficking by rulers, later ignored by the armed forces that should protect us but protect them instead. Shots fired at presidents and leaders, elimination and demonization of those who oppose the central bank, the blockades of Cuba, Argentina handed over by its leader to the Serpent people, Argentina crisis with religious themes. Why is there one with the face of a grey alien in the middle of the demonstration? The dictatorships with Argentinian militaries. Debate about the shape of the earth. Not new. UFO desclassification. This is not new either. The endless cold. Resistance against forced mask. Movements against inoculations since the past, which repeat their lethality, and began in the army, which always follows senseless orders. Not even that is new. Hopefully, soldiers rebel against evil orders and help people free themselves from the tyrants of the world before it's too late. That would be a good redemption for the condemned armies of the world. Otherwise, they are destined for disintegration. The catastrophes, bigger and bigger. Repetition, repetition, endless repetition. Even so, although much is repeated, not everything is. There are things that were fulfilled that are impossible to predict merely by assuming repetition. There are impossible details and fulfillments that did not occur in the past. Speaking of repetitions and fulfillments, remember how I showed you that the Owl Club is about Vox Apocalypse and how they combine that painting with Parravicini's Apocalypse Prophecies in the bank mural that later became reality once I published it? And how I show you those Apocalypse paintings, there were already masks, antennas, tablets, etc. Well, you can even see tree burners from within. Incredible. But look at what else is there. Oh yes, the coronavirus. Why is coronavirus in an ancient painting? Why? You cannot unsee this. And there is more. It is next to a tent where demons in black pile people up to inject them. It's identical, guys. It's the same picture. 3. The storm of the apocalypse fulfilled. Another event that Prophecies says would repeat was the Argentinian crisis that would later reach the rest of the world, but larger. This is called the Small Argentinian Storm, which would later repeat worldwide on a large scale. So we had literally saying that the storm is going to come and then repeating it everywhere. Zionist false flag attacks, crisis with looting, repression of the people, president saying people eat cats. That meme came from my city. Why does my name have to be there in the middle? Politicians fleeing. The inevitable revolution permitted by God. As we see in this example, a storm begins with a small grey cloud in the distance, but quickly everything turns black and then it rains. 4. The betrayal of the apocalypse fulfilled. One thing the prophecy says that changes is the total revelation of the betrayal of leaders among themselves and above all against their people. One betrayal after another exposed, judges endorsing unconstitutional decrees against self-freedom in full view of everyone, with the help of authorities and armed forces against their own people. Authorities lying about accepting fraud to protect their own lives while condemning people to misery and destruction. Government agencies destroying all truth informants, those who invent new forms of energy only to later sell inferior versions, or food innovators. Governments promoting violence to install a police state. Fake left-wing activists controlled by the same governments. Governments waging wars to annihilate as literal sport. Leaders wanting to organize an anti-Christian world government. Betrayal among themselves revealed through many assassinations of high private and governmental executives. Because with the advance of artificial intelligence as the final technology, the same destruction of criminal alliances repeats as in the past, in a race to secure superiority over criminal partners before the others do, leading to total chaos. All this happened before, but in hour 11, it becomes completely clear and evident to everyone that wants to see, with no turning back. The case of the child trafficking Iceland list is an example. The Antichrist from the north and his friends ran the campaign against the mobster because they knew that the only way to recover the incriminating material was with the full force of the government. And then the first thing they did when he took office was to imprison him and have him killed, and get rid of all the evidence that incriminated him and his friends. Is that what happened? That is what makes sense. 5. The UFOs of the apocalypse fulfill. Another element that brings total change are the astrals sent by God since 1970s, which at the end becomes massive. Flying lights. Eyes and humanoids in Africa. Ships traveling in and out of seas and volcanoes, deformed in appearance. Flying brains. UFO music. A movie came out about this much later. UFO crosses. Angelic forms. They descend in mass, in orbs and shapes. Some even take the form of Argentina and America. Portal and luminous rays. They bring blue light. They bring formulas for free giant vegetables, as already documented, but eliminated by always capitalist corporate governments for their private properties, but very communist when it comes to what belongs to everyone else. The recipient of the formulas was imprisoned, as happened with Doctors for Truth and many others. Giant extraterrestrials in fields. The Northern Army, again from the north, invented a campaign saying that in the Middle East they are protecting us from biblical giants. Ha! 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 That's funny. The North American Army, that massacres people while protecting the satanic petrodollar, claims to be the good guys against evil giants. In reality, any extraterrestrial giant who wants to disintegrate the Northern Army and governments is welcome. I'll open all the doors for them. Deception of space travel. Authorities threatening witnesses of extraterrestrial truth. They better desist, or they are marked for disintegration. Public admission of extraterrestrial with superior knowledge, certainty that this has been a condemned world. Collapse of the theory of evolution. There are false informants from the north again, repeating the meme that extraterrestrials are demons, citing one of the self-proclaimed Antichrist. But the truth is, he never said that at all, so it appears to be a campaign by governments that always ridicule the extraterrestrial topic and now, unable to control it, try to label it demonic or hostile. In reality, the only biblical example similar to extraterrestrial are angels, never demons, not even in Revelation. Moreover, taking as truth a false statement by a magician gives him more authority than the Bible, which is incompatible with truthers who claim to be Christian while repeating the mantra that salvation is cash and free weapons. Anti-Christian things that will not exist in the new world, since money belongs to the Federal Reserve and weapons to the arms industries. Neither digital money, paper money, nor gold is salvation. Neither are weapons. Their destiny is disintegration. The other anti-astral campaign is the infamous blue beam, invented by another from the north, basically copying Christ images from Argentinian prophecies and saying it's all a holographic lie. Terrible. There is a whole campaign by the Northern Army to convince people that extraterrestrials are demons who fear the name of Jesus, when Parravicini's prophecies are Christian and of Jesus, and there are cases where contactees speak to extraterrestrials in prayers to Jesus. So it's clear that agencies and armies are the truly satanic ones who do not want the new era of Jesus. They are marked for disintegration. In fact, in the North, they are the main promoters of the agenda of united humanity against extraterrestrial, and in Zionist churches, they invented that they are satanic angels, while modern Israel it is of God. Wow! There are even Adventists promoting such a lie, though they say Adventists are immune because of the Sabbath. Nonsense, of course. They even claim UFOs match demonology's descriptions of demons and satanic possession, which is false. There is nothing in demonology or possession that resembles most extraterrestrials. Nothing. In fact, it's the opposite. They are more similar to angels sent by God to change the era. There are apparent informants who say rulers rejected extraterrestrial technology of total super healing. He calls for rebellion, as in the prophecies. That is, this means that the military government had the opportunity to release healing technology and instead subject everyone to the fatal experiment. They are truly destined for disintegration. Forgiveness is for those who redeem themselves. Unbelievable. 7. Technology of the apocalypse fulfilled. Cell phones with screens replacing the phones itself, and that everyone will possess one. People from the north keep repeating like a satanic mantra that no one predicted this, but the truth is they are antichrist frauds marked for disintegration. The Argentinian prophecy already said it. Art made on mobile phones. It literally is called that. Artificially. There is even a movie about the disaster artist, even with triple or quadruple cameras, circles. Scanning of entire libraries, viewable that can be watched on phones. Mandatory school ceased to exist. Education is only by computer or phones. There was already a trial during the fraud, but it was forced and sabotaged to frustrate it. Satanic false government may try to slow it down, but they can't stop prophecy. Better it happen now, because if I have to endure that system one more year, I'll accelerate the apocalypse in record time, and the entire universe will feel it, even the astrals. Woe to those who force children and adults to be slaves of such an antichrist system. They are destined for disintegration. 3D printing. Robots replacing humanity. The internet meme with bandages is a copy of the Argentinian prophecies. Superhuman robots. Quantum computing, predicted by the Argentinian prophecy, not some guy from the north. He is an Antichrist impostor marked for disintegration. Mural and mental landscapes, benevolent in the prophecy because satanic world dictatorship are destroyed. Cinema with form, aroma, and multiple screens. But this 4D is actual fake. It's just a brand. Real 4D cinema is only mine. It's actually more than 4D. It's 5D. Flying suits, anti-collision radar with auto-braking and roof device, flying car helicopters, giant vegetables, total regeneration by electromagnetic rays and solar radiation, as documented in extraterrestrial contact cases. Artificial intelligence performs in seconds tasks that take ordinary humans much longer. This is already visible within just a couple of years after I said it, and it will keep accelerating. It's easy to understand how definitive AI accelerates worldwide betrayal by leaders toward the final war. Each head of military, governmental mafia is abusive and knows their criminal partners are the same, so they try to destroy them before enemies obtain the final weapon. It happened in every cycle of technological revolution. Now is the final one because it's God-like technology. The prophecies say this final repetition of technological leaps will rule over humanity and wage war. To ordinary people, the world seems solid and permanent, but it is more like a cardboard model repeated easily to knock down. In fact, Tesla, over 100 years ago, created a machine that could collapse buildings just with vibrations. So today, most of the world can be disintegrated in minutes. 8. The final new men of the apocalypse fulfilled. Finally, before the definitive end, comes the new child who learns from the new men to bring the 12th hour, the end of the end, which we will see in part 3. This is already demonstrated in the fulfilled prophecies of the Grey Men. The Christic Cell is the new man who can project the spirit to turn fiction into reality, proving the existence of the invisible spirit and the capacity of God. Perfect, this was part 2, so I will conclude the explanation of how it ends. But just in case, once again, I advise foreigners that if everything blows apart and doesn't stop, God's plan is Argentina as a shelter. If it were up to me, I'd change it in a day, but if things keep getting worse, that is the prophecy. It concludes in part 3, the end of the end.